It was a Wednesday evening that felt like any other in Washington, D.C., but the studio of American Pulse was buzzing with an energy that felt almost dangerous. The producers had spent weeks preparing for this live broadcast. They knew the ratings would spike. Elon Musk and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC, on the same panel? That was a ticking time bomb in prime time. The show's theme was advertised as Tech and Truth, the Future of Free Speech. But everyone knew that title was just window dressing. This was never going to be a discussion about algorithms and regulation. It was going to be a battlefield of ideologies, egos, and very public reputations. The studio lights dimmed. The countdown started. 5, 4, 3. Host Dana Whitmore opened the segment with practiced charisma. Tonight, we bring together two of America's most watched voices, one from the world of government, the other from the frontier of technology. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Elon Musk. Welcome. AOC sat upright, her eyes sharp, expression unreadable. Musk, in his usual black jacket and open collar shirt, leaned slightly back, arms resting with calculated ease. The tension between them was not hidden. It was visible, almost physical. The audience, though told to remain quiet, barely contained their collective anticipation. Dana's first few questions were diplomatic, about innovation, social responsibility, the role of billionaires in shaping discourse. Both guests handled them with relative grace, exchanging veiled barbs but maintaining decorum. Then came the pivot. Dana turned to Musk. You've referred to several politicians as anti-progress in recent weeks. Do you consider Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez one of them? The room stilled. Musk's eyes narrowed, and a smirk danced across his lips. Well, he said slowly, if someone's primary skill is tweeting outrage and blocking innovation, what do you call that? AOC didn't flinch. She leaned forward slightly, her voice clear, her tone controlled, but cold. You're not as clever as you think you are, Elon. And honestly, she paused for effect, you're kind of an idiot. Gasps rippled through the studio. Dana's jaw tightened. The cameramen exchanged glances. Social media moderators backstage were already scrambling to prepare clips for upload. They had gold. Musk blinked, not in surprise, but in calculation. He didn't reply immediately. The silence stretched just long enough to feel like something was about to snap. And then he smiled. But it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that said, you just activated something you're not ready for. Elon Musk sat still for a moment, absorbing the impact of AOC's words. The cameras zoomed in, capturing his expression, a mixture of surprise and something colder. Determination, maybe, or mischief. He leaned forward slowly, elbows on the glass table, fingers tented like a chess master calculating his next move. The studio, once filled with the quiet buzz of anticipation, was now suspended in stunned silence. You know, Alexandria, he began, his voice unusually soft. When someone resorts to name-calling instead of argument, it usually means they've run out of ideas. AOC opened her mouth, but he raised a hand lightly, not to interrupt rudely, but as if to say, let me finish. You'll want to hear this. I'm not here to play nice or to impress Washington. I'm here because I build things that work. While politicians, he paused for effect, build narratives that don't. A low murmur stirred in the studio audience. Some nodded, others shifted uncomfortably. Dana Whitmore glanced at her teleprompter, then back at the guests. She knew this was no longer a debate. It was a wildfire. I'm the idiot? Elon continued, voice rising. I create reusable rockets, electric vehicles, satellite internet for remote villages. Meanwhile, you create tweet storms and hashtags. AOC's eyes flared, but Musk wasn't done. You called me an idiot on live television, and you're welcome to your opinion. But while you're yelling at Wall Street, I'm funding AI research, drilling tunnels under cities, and trying to prevent the extinction of the human species. He leaned back now, arms crossed, staring straight at her. What exactly is it that you build, Congresswoman, besides outrage? The room was electric. AOC didn't answer right away. She was visibly seething, but not defeated. Her fingers drummed the table. Her jaw clenched. Dana tried to step in. Let's take a moment to— No, AOC said firmly. I want to respond. She turned fully to Musk, her voice low and cutting. You think because you throw money at big problems, that makes you a savior. But you don't get it. Progress isn't a patent. It's not a rocket. It's justice. And you can't launch that from a SpaceX pad. Applause broke out, unexpected, spontaneous, from part of the audience. But it didn't drown out the tension. It only added to it. Musk raised an eyebrow. Nice line. Did your PR team write it? Did yours program you? She shot back without missing a beat. The room exploded, not with chaos, but with an energy no scriptwriter could have crafted. Tweets were already trending. Clips were being posted in real time. Musk vs. AOC was the #1 trend in the U.S. within minutes. Dana had lost control of the interview, but no one cared. The world was watching. The studio lights no longer felt neutral. They buzzed hot above their heads like the midday sun in a desert showdown. Elon Musk and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez now sat rigid, eyes locked, breathing in rhythm like opponents in a ring. No bell needed. Dana Whitmore took a small breath and tried again. Let's pivot to something less personal. Climate policy, perhaps. But the momentum of the moment had no brakes. I'm not here to discuss surface issues, Elon said, not even glancing at the host. I'm here to talk about why we're failing. Why every time someone tries to build something meaningful, they get strangled by bureaucrats who haven't made a thing in their life. Careful, AOC snapped. You're assuming profit equals purpose, that just because you're rich, you're right. Musk smirked. No, Congresswoman. I assume results matter. I assume if someone wants to change the world, they should actually build something other than a narrative. Gasps scattered through the audience. One young woman in the second row whispered, He's not backing down. Phones lit up like a swarm of fireflies, recording every millisecond. AOC leaned in now, her tone measured but fierce. You talk about building the future, but who gets to live in that future? The ones who can afford a Tesla? The ones with Wi-Fi from your satellites? The ones you don't fire over a tweet? The crowd stirred again. Elon's face didn't flinch. I make things scalable. You make things political. And you dodge accountability behind innovation, she retorted. Tell me, how much empathy is in your launch code? The tension snapped like a taut string. Dana's earpiece crackled. Producers were panicking in the booth. Do they cut? Let it burn? Commercial break? Elon looked out over the audience, then back at AOC. You keep talking about justice, but justice without pragmatism is just a slogan. I may not be a politician, but I've moved humanity forward. You talk about empathy. Fine. But let's not forget, rockets don't run on feelings. And revolutions don't run on ego, AOC fired back. For a moment, there was silence, then clapping, scattered but growing. The viewers at home didn't know whose side to take. That was the brilliance of it. It wasn't left versus right anymore. It was system versus disruptor, ideology versus execution. Voice versus volume. The screen split into 6 TV analyst boxes within minutes. Twitter was flooded. Reddit exploded. TikTok edits of their exchange popped up before the segment had even ended. And in the middle of the inferno, Elon and AOC sat like statues of opposing gods, unblinking, unwilling to yield. Dana Whitmore sat frozen in her chair, the cards in her hand trembling ever so slightly. She wasn't just witnessing a debate. She was hosting a televised collision of worldviews, and the glass walls of neutrality were already cracking. Elon, are you saying democracy slows progress? Dana finally asked, her voice straining to remain composed. Musk turned toward her, expression steady. I'm saying that visionaries get choked by red tape, that the same system built to empower is now afraid of people who think differently. You mean people like you? AOC cut in, her voice like a blade. People who think they're above oversight because they wrote some code and launched a few rockets? The audience tensed again. Even the crew behind the cameras had stopped moving, every eye locked on the verbal duel that refused to let up. Yes, Musk said. I mean, people like me, the ones who don't wait for permission to act. AOC stood up suddenly. Gasps erupted from the audience. Then maybe you should stop pretending you're some messiah, she snapped. You're not saving the world, Elon. You're branding it. The room went dead silent. Dana's face drained of color. A producer gestured frantically from behind the camera, mouthing, "Cut, 2, break." But Elon didn't flinch. He slowly stood too, now eye to eye with her. I don't need to be a messiah, he said coldly. But I refuse to be lectured by someone who's made a career shouting from the sidelines. And just like that, AOC took a step back. Her eyes scanned the room, the shocked audience, the blinking camera lights, the frozen crew. She reached down, picked up her notes from the table, and turned to Dana. I don't participate in tech worship, she said, voice sharp, especially when it's dressed up as genius. Then, without another word, she walked off the set. The audience gasped. Phones shot up in the air to record her exit. Dana was speechless. Elon remained standing, his jaw clenched but victorious, or perhaps just disappointed. No celebration, no smirk, just silence. Backstage, the control room was chaos. Someone whispered, "This just became the most watched moment in live political television this year." And the internet agreed. The clip of AOC leaving mid-broadcast was already viral by the time the screen faded to commercial. Hashtags trended in both directions. Musk mic drop and AOC walked out. But one thing was certain. Nobody would forget what just happened. The broadcast hadn't even fully cut to commercial before Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube exploded into digital chaos. Clips of AOC storming off and Elon Musk's unflinching response began circulating like wildfire. Within minutes, daughters AOC vs Musk, Darcy's mic drop Musk, and Dine's Elon exposed were trending worldwide, each tugging the narrative in a different direction. On MSNBC, a panel was already convened. This wasn't a debate, one commentator said. This was a philosophical war. Meanwhile, conservative news hailed Musk as a truth-teller. Liberal circles framed AOC's departure as a refusal to normalize tech-fueled narcissism. Reddit threads multiplied. Memes exploded. Even late-night hosts adjusted their monologues on the fly. At the Tesla headquarters, Elon stood in his private office, arms crossed, watching a replay of the broadcast on a muted screen. His team was pacing in the hallway, unsure whether to celebrate or panic. Sam, his communications lead, stepped in nervously. We've got requests pouring in. CNN wants a follow-up. Joe Rogan's already texted twice. And you're trending in 8 countries. Elon didn't respond right away. His mind wasn't on the headlines, it was on the look in AOC's eyes. Not just anger, but disappointment, as if she had expected him to be more. "Schedule nothing," he said finally. "Let the storm burn." Sam blinked. "Wait, you're not going to respond?" Musk turned from the screen. "Not yet." Elsewhere, in a quiet DC townhouse, Alexandria sat on a couch, her phone lighting up non-stop. Aide after aide messaged, "Are you okay?" That was bold. "We're behind you." But her fingers hovered over the screen without replying. Then a new text arrived. It was from her mother. "You spoke your truth. That's what matters." Alexandria smiled faintly. But her mind wasn't at rest. She had made her move. But Elon, he was dangerous, not because of what he said, but because of how many people were willing to believe it. Back in California, SpaceX engineers whispered in break rooms. Tesla employees watched the clip during lunch. Some cheered, some cringed. But in every corner of the internet and every news cycle, one question echoed like a drumbeat. What happens next? And in Elon's mind, the answer was already forming. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wasn't retreating. She was regrouping. The morning after the explosive broadcast, she stood before a room full of reporters at the Capitol, not with notes or handlers whispering talking points, but with a steady gaze and a calm fire that silenced the room before she said a single word. "I've been called worse than radical. I've been interrupted, underestimated, and yes, dismissed," she said into the mic. "But I won't be talked over, not by billionaires, not by men who think speaking louder makes them right." The cameras clicked in a frenzy. Live feeds buzzed. And in that moment, AOC was no longer just a congresswoman. She was the voice of something bigger. Her team had moved fast. A 10-minute video compilation titled "This Is Why She Walked Out" was already live on every platform, and it was surging past 5 million views in under 3 hours. Young activists reposted it with captions like "Unbought," "Unafraid." Editorials in The Atlantic and The Guardian praised her refusal to play by outdated rules. At Columbia University, students gathered on the lawn to watch the debate replay on a projector, cheering when she stood up and walked off. Hashtags like "Fans stand with AOC" and "Truth doesn't need permission" lit up TikTok and Instagram reels. Inside the White House briefing room, a senior official raised an eyebrow at the trending topics. "She's turning this into a movement," he muttered. Even international outlets picked up the story. In Europe, newspapers framed it as AOC versus Silicon ego. In South America, she was praised for challenging tech imperialism. Alexandria didn't gloat. She didn't issue a second blow. Instead, she scheduled town halls. One in Queens, another in Detroit, then Los Angeles. But they weren't campaign stops. They were conversations. And when she stepped on stage, she didn't start with Elon Musk's name. She started with the people's. "I walked off that set," she told one packed auditorium, "because I've spent my life walking into rooms where people were silenced. And this time, I chose not to be." The crowd roared, but it wasn't noise. It was affirmation. Backstage, a young girl asked for a photo. "You showed us we don't have to smile when we're disrespected." AOC knelt to her level and whispered, "And you don't ever have to." Elon Musk sat in the control room of a new neural interface lab in Palo Alto, screens flickering with live telemetry and ambient blue light dancing across his face. Yet, for once, the data didn't hold his attention. Every major news outlet had one name on the chyron, and it wasn't his. AOC's stand sends shockwaves through tech power structures. She walked out, and the world walked with her. Not just a debate, a reckoning. Elon had built rockets that escaped gravity. But this moment was different. He wasn't facing physics. He was facing perception. Twitter, the platform he once dominated with cryptic emojis and midnight provocations, had turned into a town square he couldn't quite control. Threads dissected the debate frame by frame. Analysts zoomed in on his body language. Young creators spliced clips of Alexandria's sharp retorts into videos layered with orchestral music and protest footage. Even some of his allies, venture capitalists, tech journalists, former interns turned influencers, had begun to shift tone. Genius? Yes. But maybe not the voice we need right now. I admire Elon's ambition, but AOC spoke truth to power. It's not about who's richer, it's about who's listening. And perhaps the most cutting blow came not from media, but from inside one of his own companies. A leaked Slack message from a Tesla engineer read, "Hard to feel proud when our CEO gets schooled on live TV. She didn't just win, she dismantled him." Elon frowned. He was used to backlash, he wore it like a second skin, but this wasn't mere outrage. This was erosion, slow, quiet, and cultural. He opened his private messages. A single note from an old friend stood out. "You built Mars missions, but forgot Earth has its own revolutionaries." For a moment, he closed the screen. In a moment of unusual stillness, he asked himself the question no headline had written yet. Had he underestimated her? Meanwhile, across the country, Alexandria stood on a balcony overlooking a community clinic in the Bronx, reporters below still shouting questions. She raised her hand, smiled faintly, and said, "I don't fight for airtime. I fight for people who never get the mic." The crowd below didn't cheer. They listened. And somewhere, in a boardroom, in a control tower, in a brightly lit podcast studio, someone whispered, "This isn't about tech anymore. This is about truth." The camera flashes never really stopped. Since that explosive night in the studio, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had become more than a political figure. She had become a phenomenon. But behind the perfectly worded sound bites and laser-precise takedowns, something else was happening. The world was shifting around her. Podcasts, late-night hosts, student rallies, everywhere. One name kept coming up alongside hers: Musk. The tech tycoon who once ruled media cycles with tweets and Teslas was now a symbol of the old guard. Not irrelevant, just outmaneuvered. And the whispers had begun. Will they meet again? Was that just round one? What would happen if Musk brought the fight to AOC's turf? Rumors swirled that a major forum was being planned in Washington, a bipartisan tech ethics summit. Unofficially, it was already being called the rematch. Elon didn't confirm. Alexandria didn't deny. But their silence only added fuel to the fire. Inside a sun-drenched boardroom at SpaceX, Elon tapped a pen against his desk. A trusted advisor leaned in. "You know she's rallying not just the public. She's pulling policy strings now. AI regulation, carbon credit audits, campaign tech transparency. Her fingerprints are everywhere." Musk didn't flinch. "So let her. I've built rockets under embargo. I'll navigate this too." But later, alone in the elevator, his reflection looked more like a man preparing for war than innovation. Across the country, in a brick-walled office lit by paper lanterns and protest posters, Alexandria was handed a document. The cover read, "Summit Agenda, a future we build or break." She smiled without showing her teeth. "He'll come, he has to. Ego has better GPS than conviction." A young staffer raised an eyebrow. "And if he wins this time?" She looked up, fierce and calm. "Then he earned it. But I'm not here to beat Elon. I'm here to show the world who's been doing cleanup while he's been chasing stars. Back at Twitter HQ, a cryptic tweet appeared from @Elon Musk. The future isn't decided in debates. It's engineered. But I'm game. Just say when. It exploded within minutes. Musk versus AOC trended worldwide. The rematch wasn't scheduled. It was inevitable. The Capital Tech Ethics Forum wasn't supposed to be a battleground. It was pitched as a moderated, balanced summit, designed for nuance, not noise. But the moment Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stepped onto the grand oak-paneled stage in her signature cobalt blazer and silent, steel-set gaze, everyone in the room knew this wasn't going to be civil. And when, moments later, Elon Musk entered from the opposite wing, hands in pockets, wearing a half-smile that meant nothing and everything, the press box collectively leaned forward as if trying to catch the first flicker of a storm. No handshake, no nod, just silence. Then came the moderator's voice, trembling beneath the polished opening. Our next discussion, artificial intelligence, economic ethics, and social accountability, features two of the most influential voices of our era. The applause was hollow. No one clapped for fairness anymore. They clapped for impact. AOC took the first swing. Before we talk about AI, let's be honest about something, Elon. You've built empires out of systems that ignore people. The workers beneath your rockets, the moderators behind your algorithms, the social costs buried in every supply chain. Tell me, where's your humanity protocol? There was a flicker in Elon's brow, like something had pierced the outer shell. He leaned toward the mic slowly, then said coolly, Alexandria, you're very good at pointing fingers, but maybe it's easier to yell from the crowd than to build the arena. I don't run empathy code. I hire people, real ones, who want jobs, not lectures. Gasps, clicks, phones lifted like weapons. AOC didn't blink. And how many of them can afford rent in the cities your tech has gentrified? How many get a say before the code decides their future? Everyone gets a say, Musk replied. It's called the market. You want fairness? Build something better. That line echoed. Too fast, too clean. It was scripted, practiced. But Alexandria's comeback wasn't. We are. It's called democracy. You just haven't read the update log. Boom. Applause. Some even stood. Elon's expression cracked. Not fully, but enough to suggest the script was no longer holding. The moderator tried to interject, maybe we should move to the next topic. But it was too late. This wasn't a discussion anymore. It was a collision course. And the mics were still hot. The forum ended, but the noise didn't. Clips of the exchange flooded the internet within seconds. TikTok loops, Twitter wars, YouTube thumbnails screaming, AOC destroys Muskliv, or Musk strikes back. But underneath the algorithmic frenzy, something more substantial was stirring. The hashtag #Mike is hot trended for 36 hours straight. On CNN, analysts debated whether Alexandria's update log remark would enter political history books. Fox News branded her the radical disruptor. TechCrunch published a side-by-side fact check. Reddit was on fire. Threads like, greater than, did AOC just say what we've all been thinking? Musk looked nervous. That's rare. Forget AI. This was political theater at its peak. Backstage, Elon sat alone for a moment, not tweeting, not checking stocks, just still. He wasn't angry. He'd been challenged before. But this time, the audience didn't laugh with him. Some even turned. He replayed her words in his mind. It's called democracy. You just haven't read the update log. Meanwhile, AOC was whisked through a corridor by aides, camera flashes bouncing off her jacket like she'd just walked out of a championship fight. One young staffer whispered, "That was bold." She just nodded, removed her mic, and said, "Someone had to say it." In the coming days, polls shifted. Alexandria's approval among young voters jumped. Elon's favorability held strong, but differently. Now more divided, more scrutinized. Advertisers began reconsidering their affiliations. Wall Street took notice. And somewhere in a quiet cafe in Brooklyn, an old man sipped coffee and muttered, "Finally, a politician who doesn't blink around billionaires." That night, Elon tweeted only one thing: "Some people build with words, others with code. Both shape the future." Alexandria didn't reply. She didn't need to. She had already spoken loud enough for the whole world to hear. Two forces collided, not just on stage, but across a nation. One built rockets, the other built movements. But when their voices clashed, what echoed wasn't just disagreement. It was a question we're all still answering. Who shapes the future? The ones who write the code, or the ones who write the laws? You decide.